What is everybody? Welcome to the Optimal presented by FTN Network and presented by FTN Daily. We're here on a Monday on the following Monday of week 10. So it was a pretty interesting week yesterday. We had a few very high scoring games, so can't complain about the entertainment value of week 10, but we have a pretty interesting Monday night game as well. So today we're going to break down week 10, take a look at the recap, talk a little bit about the NBA slate if we have time at the end, but I think it's mostly going to be an NFL show today. We do have an 11-game NBA slate that we're going to talk about, but we're going to keep the show to 30 minutes today. I'm going to try to cut down the show time today. Just have some things that I'm doing after the show, but 30-minute show today is I think we're actually going to start planning on doing a 30-minute show more often going forward. Let me know what your guys' thoughts on that are. But in terms of comments, going to be watching the Discord channel. If you are an FTN sub, I will be in the NFL Discord chat. So feel free to throw any questions or comments in there regarding the Monday night slate or regarding the Week 10 review. Looks like we have a lot of quotes in there from the Rams players and stuff. So it looks like we are already diving deeply into the Monday night contest here. San Francisco at the Rams. A lot of eyes on this one, obviously, with Odell Beckham making his debut. That guy brings a ton of attention to him, no matter where he goes. That is for sure. That's one thing I found out very quickly. But so today, Week 10 recap, Monday Night Football review, or Monday Night Football preview, sorry, and then potentially some NBA stuff. I want to talk a little bit about some weekend NBA stuff. Had another big night using the optimizer, 20K takedown, tied for second place in the $15 swingman. FanDuel had a $15 swingman, which isn't common. Normally it's it changes. They have the clutch shot, I think the name of it is. I don't really know all the names of the contest, but like the clutch shot is like their main contest every night, and that's like either like $4 or $5, $6. And they also have like a $9 MME type contest where you can do a 150 max. But on Saturday they had a $15 one with 100K up top, and it looks like that was an uncommon thing. I don't think they rolled that out. It's not out there today. It wasn't out there Sunday, but ended up finishing tied for second in that. So that was for 20K, and it was really weird. We didn't have a dupe lineup or anything. It was a pretty big slate, so it was probably hard to dupe a lineup, but we just ended up with the same exact score, completely different lineups. I don't even know how many players we had that were alike, but it was definitely not more than a few. So it was very strange, but ended up with the same exact score there. So tied for second there using the optimizer. And the optimizer for the NBA stuff has been amazing. Tuesday and Wednesdays are going to be big NBA days on this show. So make sure you guys are tuning into those if you're interested in MMEing for NBA or just using the optimizer to do one or just a few lineups. You can use it in multitude of different ways. So I would highly recommend that. But on the show, it's going to be a lot of talking about processes and tournament strategy and the optimizer stuff. But I also want to talk about the fun stuff as well. So if you guys have any sweats or any bad beats or anything, or maybe some big wins, I want to be able to talk about those as well. So anytime you guys want to talk about that, feel free to throw those in the comment section on whatever platform you're watching: Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, or if you're in the Discord on FTN. I'll always be watching that. Twitter I don't have pulled up today. I tried actually I can pull up on my phone actually. The Twitter thing's been giving me a whole problem on my laptop. For some reason, when I watch on my laptop, it doesn't pull up any comments. So it's been pretty frustrating. I'm not gonna lie. It does look a little bit blurry right now, so I apologize for any blurriness. Hopefully things will get better here as the show goes on. But hopefully I sound all right and the audio and the video quality hold up. But apologize for that. All right, so I'm going to run the intro here, and I'll be back. And here we go.
Every day, DFS players set out in search of the perfect lineup.
Great Scott!
To help you craft the best lineup in the land, FTN's Kyle Murray is here to take you through one of the most powerful tools in the DFS world.
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
It's The Optimal with Kyle Murray.
Shout out to Tom for the intro. And we're going to hop into the the week recap just here in a second here. But I did want to talk about the Monday Night Football stuff as well a little bit more. I'm going to actually have the projections uploaded in there. I'm working on getting the projections uploaded now into the final load of the optimizer. So once we have that in there, we will be all set and ready to go on the Monday Night Football front. But first, we're going to hop into the week recap of Week 10. Double digits. Can't believe we've already hit double digits. But let's hop in there now. All right. Hopefully that looks all right. I'll zoom in a little bit too as well. As always, let me know if it looks all right. If it's zoomed in enough, let me know. If not, I can zoom in a little bit more. But we're in the NBA optimizer real quick, but we're gonna hop into the NFL one. I want to touch on something. As you can see, we have a new name. We've been brainstorming for like, I don't know, a week, maybe 2 weeks about cool names for the optimizer. We've just been calling it the FTN optimizer lately, and we wanted a cooler name. So shout out to our guy Josh, who I believe he was the first one that brought up this name. It was either Josh or Elliot. I don't know, one of those two guys. I get them confused. They're both like similar heights and they look a lot alike. So I get them mixed up a lot. I hope they're watching this right now. But yeah, so we're going with a new name, the Lineup Edge Optimizer. I wish I could take the credit for it. I cannot, but I love the name Lineup Edge. And as you can tell if you've been using it, I think it gives you a massive edge in your lineup. So I've been really enjoying that so far and really like the name. So looking forward to talking about that a bit more as we go on. But all right, top scorers. Actually, let's look at the optimal lineup first. I'm curious. All right, optimal lineup was Dak Prescott, Ramondre Stevenson, Jonathan Taylor, Kendrick Bourne, who would have thought, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, Tyler Conklin, A.J. Dillon, and the Cowboys defense. Obviously, Aaron Jones got injured. Does sound like he's going to be, for the most part, okay. Looks like it's going to be 1 to 2 weeks of him being sidelined with an MCL issue, which is never great, but I'm sure he's relieved. And I'm sure Packers fans are relieved after, I would assume, they were scared about potential season-ending stuff there. So I know I have him in a couple leagues, and I am sure relieved. Obviously, in all those leagues I do have, or I think all of them. I think in all of them, I have A.J. Dillon, so that obviously helps relax that kind of thought. But it definitely was not ideal if you were an Aaron Jones owner, especially if you didn't have A.J. Dillon. But it does sound like he's going to be okay. The report that I saw today, 1 to 2 weeks. So A.J. Dillon obviously cracking the optimal lineup there. If you're able to predict A.J. Dillon cracking the optimal lineup, you definitely are from the future, and I would like to use your Magic 8-Ball or something, because that is a nice prediction there. But Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, guys that people were on pretty commonly, and actually our guy Elliot wrote up CeeDee Lamb as one of his favorite 10 under 10 plays, so that was a really strong call. I mean, it was just a fantastic tournament play, because if everyone was going to, Dak and Amari Cooper and even Gallup, and then even Zeke got some ownership, going to CeeDee Lamb was just such a good tournament play. And obviously it did not take him long to pay off. He had 50 yards and a touchdown in the first drive. So very impressive performance there from CeeDee Lamb. And I'm not going to say it's because I just bought a CeeDee Lamb shirt a couple weeks ago, which I think you guys have seen on the show once. But I think that definitely has something to do with it. But yeah, so big game for CeeDee Lamb there. Jonathan Taylor was obviously fantastic, and he was pretty popular as well. Ramondre Stevenson, he also was a pretty strong tournament play. I mean, he made so much sense in the sense that everyone was playing Ingram and everyone was playing D'Ernest Johnson, who both did great, but neither of them scored 30 points like Ramondre Stevenson, and their roles were pretty similar, right? Like when you think about it, all three of them were guys who really haven't been involved in the passing game, although Ramondre Stevenson had been involved in the passing game here and there. Like he had a couple of weeks where he was, sorry about that, where he was heavily involved in the passing game. But past that, we'd seen almost no involvement from Ingram or D'Ernest Johnson in passing game, although Ingram was in Houston prior to that. But all three of them had, well, actually, Ramondre Stevenson was the least involved in the passing game, but he scored twice. And D'Ernest Johnson had 50-plus receiving yards. Ingram had 50-plus receiving yards. So all three of those guys were very strong plays. Ramondre Stevenson was the best of the bunch, though, and he was also the lowest owned, which made him a fantastic tournament play. Kendrick Bourne, again, just not a guy that I think anyone was reasonably getting to. I think he scored twice. I mean, if you went to a Patriots receiver, it probably should have been Jacoby Myers, who also scored. Hey, broke the curse, right? I mean, that's pretty. I mean, it was a long time. So, and the celebration with the Patriots after Myers scored was awesome. I love seeing that. That was hilarious. But Kendrick Bourne is like the number 3 receiver there, and obviously you have Stevenson and you have even Hunter Henry. Like, in terms of if you were making a list of guys that you were probably going to roster, Bourne is maybe 4th amongst Patriots. So he had the big game, but probably wasn't a guy many people are getting to, as you can tell by the projected ownership. But Conklin was fairly common in terms of, being recognized as a decent play. I didn't get to him a lot myself because of how heavy I was on a guy like Kyle Pitts, but he was totally fine. Conklin obviously scored twice as well, so he paid off a lot of those, put up a lot of those points by finding the end zone, which is kind of what you hope for out of a tight end. But Diggs and Lamb, 2 very good receivers who paid off in a big way. Diggs finally had the monster game. Cowboys D was pretty awesome. Atlanta did nothing. They looked terrible. And then obviously they had the blocked punt. Was it a blocked punt? I think it was a blocked punt return for a touchdown. So that was the optimal lineup. Let's take a look at the top projected or top final finishers here at each position. Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, only 2 quarterbacks this week over 20, which is very strange because we had some good scores, had some decent scores. But like, for example, the Bills scored 45 points and Josh Allen scored 24. Like, and he didn't really get pulled either. Stephon Diggs had like a 30-yard catch with like 2 minutes left, so they didn't really take their foot off the gas. And he still only scored 24. Like, I mean, if you roster him, you're fine, especially if you paired him with Diggs. But I mean, if you get a quarterback that scores 45 points, you're probably feeling all right. You had an Isaiah McKenzie rushing touchdown. You had Matt Breida rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown, which, wow. Then you had a Zach Moss rushing touchdown. Diggs did score, but nothing from Beasley or Sanders, so that wasn't ideal. So overall, I would say it was a pretty weird outcome there for Josh Allen. And honestly, for a lot of quarterbacks, it's not often that you only see 2 names above 20 points. And then right below them, guys like Mac Jones, Trevor Siemian. There's not a lot of players that people are on. Tannehill wasn't even that popular. As for some busts, Brady was a massive bust. I don't even know how he got to 15 points. Started off the game with what I thought was 3 picks. The third one ended up, it wasn't called a pick on the field, but it did look like a pick after review, and then they ended up just upholding the play, so it's just an incompletion. But yeah, I mean, he started off in a bad way. Herbert was pretty bad. Rodgers was pretty bad. Wilson was pretty bad. Like, a lot of these, there's some pretty significant busts at quarterback. Matt Ryan was horrible. I feel like an absolute moron for liking Matt Ryan. He was terrible. That was brutal. But that's what quarterback looked like. Taking a look at running back, Ramondre Stevenson, not only the best point per dollar running back and a great tournament play, but the highest scoring overall running back of the week. On a massively strong running back slate where we had guys like Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, all in great spots. The top scorer was Ramondre Stevenson. Pretty impressive. He had a big game. Jonathan Taylor, A.J. Dillon, Christian McCaffrey, D'Ernest Johnson, Antonio Gibson found the end zone twice in a tough matchup. Ezekiel Elliott also found the end zone twice. Mark Ingram was up there, Najee Harris, and Dalvin Cook, all names above 20. You can go down here a little bit more. Matt Breida had 19 out of nowhere. That was strange. Michael Carter and James Robinson were good once again. Swift somehow managed to get 100 yards rushing against the Pittsburgh defense. That was pretty impressive. So, I mean, it was just overall such a strong running back slate, especially because none of them were really, I mean, obviously you had all the mega awesome value, but like even Cook and Taylor and Christian McCaffrey, none of them were really overly expensive either. So I think it's going to be interesting. I haven't even looked at the pricing yet for week 11, but I'm very curious to see where some of these guys' prices are. Top wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Kendrick Bourne, Devonta Smith, Marcus Johnson, Keenan Allen, Gabe Davis, another guy. Like, if you played Josh Allen and you, I don't know, paired him with Beasley or Sanders or someone like that, then you just see Gabe Davis popping off like that. He had 2 just very long catches. Ray McLeod, like 12 targets, 11 targets, something like that. Massive game. If you're like me and you play Terry McLaurin, seeing DeAndre Carter find the end zone and have a solid game, you didn't love that. Devontae Adams, I don't know how he didn't have a bigger game. I mean, he had 12 points at halftime. That was just an awful game. Just in general, Seattle did nothing. Seattle looked like they're probably the least impressive offense I saw all week. And that was they're right there with the Falcons. That's how bad they looked. They could not move the ball. They could not get things done. Russell Wilson did not look like himself. I'm sure there's some rust there. Maybe he's dealing with some stuff with the finger, but it did not look good for Seattle. So that game, just in general, just turned out to be horrible. I think one thing to note with Green Bay that I don't know if this is true or not. So I'm just kind of theorizing here based on what I've seen. I haven't looked at any numbers on it or anything. This is actually something that you can probably potentially get a feel for with our split stool. But I wonder how much different this offense is going to look with AJ Dillon back there more frequently compared to Aaron Jones. When Jones is back there, they're looking to pass more. They're playing a bit quicker. Like with AJ Dillon back there, if they get the chance to run the clock out and run the ball a ton, I think they could do it. They do not mind giving that guy the ball a ton on the ground. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects the Packers offense the next couple of weeks. Not sure how I feel about that, but that was just something that I just kind of thought of yesterday as I was kind of watching them play. And I'm sure that is partially because of how yesterday looked, because that game was just unbearably slow. But D-Bro made a good point on the Sunday morning show where even with Aaron Jones, they were playing pretty slow. So those were the top wide receivers. Let's check out the top point per dollar wide receivers: Marcus Johnson, Bourne, Barry McLeod, Carter, Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs up there as one of the top point per dollars, and CeeDee Lamb, and Justin Jefferson for that matter. So also Justin Jefferson has quietly been amazing. He's been incredible. Even like he's just not really getting a ton of attention, but he's been amazing. All right, let's check out tight ends. I don't think anyone got over 20, did they? Nope. Hunter Henry, 19.7, found the end zone twice and scored 19.7. So we had two tight ends at the top score twice here. Hunter Henry, Tyler Conklin. Gerald Everett did not score twice, but he had a ton of catches. Yeah, he had like 5 catches I think a little after halftime or something like that. 4 or 5 catches. I don't know. He had a lot of catches. I remember looking at the stat line and I saw that none of the receivers had a catch up until like late in the second quarter. And they had only accounted for 1 target. And meanwhile, Disley and Everett accounted for like 4 or 5 catches or something at that time. And I was like, what are these guys doing? Dan Arnold started off slow, but he got there, 13.7. Hooper scored. Noah Fant was good. And I shouldn't say good, but he was fine despite not really finding the end zone. Albert O, he had a 60-yard catch and run. That was pretty cool. I wish he would have done that. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Kyle Pitts, I mean, he's doing everything he can. I mean, he had 4 catches for 60 yards, I think it was his final stat line. But in the first quarter, he had 3 catches for 50 yards or something like that. I don't know what the exact numbers were, but in the first quarter, in the first drive, he had 2 catches for like 35, 40 yards, and they don't give him the ball throughout the rest of the game. Like it's just unbearable to watch stuff like that happen. Like, I mean, after the first drive, I genuinely thought Kyle Pitts was going to absolutely smash. And he was a core play for me. He was my highest owned player. I had 5 lineups on DraftKings, and I had a few lineups on Yahoo and Super Draft as well. But on DraftKings, I can't remember the exposures there. But on DraftKings, I had, I think, him in 4 out of my 5 main DraftKings lineups. And after that first drive, I was thinking he was going to absolutely crush, and he ended up just falling off because they just stopped getting the ball. So that wasn't ideal. And also that team just looked terrible. And then in the fourth quarter, they weren't even playing because they were down 69 points and they were just toast from the get-go there. So Kyle Pitts, I do think is going to be a guy I continue to bang my head up against the wall and play. And maybe some other tight ends throughout the course of different slates. But I just think I want these tight ends with upside. I mean, sure, you can try to play a guy like Hunter Henry and Conklin, hope they score twice. I think that's fine if they're cheap. But there's just so many tight ends with upside that these other tight ends just don't have. And I continue to think that that's something that we can touch on. But defense was kind of strange. Panthers were my favorite defense of the week. They were the, fifth best defense on the board, 14 points. Not too bad for being 2,400. And surprisingly enough, they didn't really get any ownership. They were 7 And the $100 SPY, I think it was the SPY. I don't know. It was a $100 single entry. They were like 7%. And the $200 single entry on DraftKings, they were like 9%. So they weren't very popular. And I played them a lot. I don't ever really play defense in like every lineup or most of my lineups. I think I had them in 4 out of 5 lineups too. So I mean, the ownership just never got there, and maybe that's because of what Colt McCoy did last week, and people got scared off. But definitely was my favorite defense of the week, and they did all right. But all right, that's it for the week in review. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to throw those in there. We're going to take a look at Monday night. Projections should be up. The ownership will be up once they're posted on the site. I'll throw them into the optimizer. It's not classic, it's Showdown. But obviously, I have a couple things to talk about. Projections and ceiling and the ratings are all in there. So a couple things to talk about in this game. We have no Robert Woods. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL. He's going to be out for the year. That was a strange story, first of all. The guy tore his ACL at practice, finishes practice, does interviews, goes about his day like he just, I don't know, banged his knee up or something. Like it was like a normal day, like a common thing. Then they finally test his knee at night, and they say, "Oh, hey, your ACL's torn." Like that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. Also, another thing, Cam Akers apparently has a chance to come back in the playoffs. Like the medical stuff these days is just wild to me. I know that has nothing to do with what we're doing here on the show, DFS related, but that stuff's crazy to me. The whole medical side of football, I think that stuff is wild. But all right, enough of that. Enough of my nonsensical rambling. Let's talk about the Monday Night Football slate. How to use an optimizer in a showdown slate. I think the first thing you need to do when you're trying to use an optimizer, especially on a showdown slate, is kind of decide what you're looking to do. I've told you guys this before on the show that I've actually turned to doing more single entry stuff in showdowns. I still do some MMEs, but I actually really enjoy doing single entry in showdown. Like for me, when I play showdowns, I play it because I enjoy them, and I think it makes me enjoy watching the game more. So for that reason, I like to do a lot of single entry stuff because I'm able to enjoy the entertainment value of DFS a little bit more there. There's plenty of times like in NBA or in any sport where I'm MMEing where it gets tough to follow along who you actually want to do certain things. Like sure, okay, player A, I have in 60% of lineups, so I know I want them to do well, right? That's definitely fair, and that makes a lot of sense. But if you're doing one lineup, you know exactly what you need, you know exactly what hurts, and you know exactly kind of what you're sweating. So for someone who's looking to build one lineup, there's definitely ways you can use this. You can run it as like an optimal type build, which I would not recommend doing in Showdown, unless you're playing like cash, which also I would not recommend doing in Showdown. But there's definitely plenty of people who do it, and I'm sure people do it pretty well. But in Showdowns, like it's very strange, right? It's inches can change the entire complexion of the slate, which it also can happen in other sports, as you guys can tell if you're following me on Twitter. And NBA, it can happen too. I lost, what was it, 40K on a Terrence Mann last 20 seconds left in the game, made a bucket that really did not matter, and that dropped me down to tied for second rather than tied for first on Saturday. That stuff happens in football on every single play in showdowns. It's literally every play. Quarterback gets a 1-yard rush, things are changing like crazy. I'm being a little bit exaggerative there, but showdowns are absolutely insane when it comes to all of the ebbs and flows of it. So for me personally, if you're looking to build one lineup, I would recommend still thinking of game theory. Like I think game theory is extremely important in Showdown. I think it's the most important thing. So keep that in mind when you're building those lineups. Think of ownership, think of correlation, all that good stuff. But let's talk about some of my favorite plays for the night. You can see on the projections right now, Cooper Kupp is at the top. I think he's going to make a lot of sense. We actually just had the Rams. I forget who they were playing. Was it the Colts? No, it was the Titans. They were playing the Titans. We just had them on a showdown slate, and Cooper Kupp was massively popular and the captain. And that game ended up just being everyone was bad, so it didn't really matter. I don't think really anyone did all that great. But Cooper Kupp is probably going to be fairly popular once again. Let me double check here, see if the ownership projections are up for the showdown slate. All right, not updated yet, but either way, I think Kupp's going to be very popular. I think Stafford's going to be very popular. But my favorite play of the night, I think, is George Kittle. George Kittle's kind of in a spot where he's cheap enough to where he is a pretty solid play based on his price. His upside is high enough to where I think he's I think he genuinely has, in terms of his ceiling, like true ceiling. I think he can definitely compete with guys like Kupp and Deebo Samuel, and even a couple of the quarterbacks. So I think George Kittle's probably my favorite play right now. I mean, he came back last week and they leaned on this guy extremely hard. So I do think he's going to be a very strong play. Um, and then Elijah Mitchell. I also love Mitchell tonight. As you can see, I'm sorting this by salary right now. You can go down the list here, and you can see a guy with a 16-point projection sandwiched in between a 9-point and about a 10-point projection. That's because they've made it Elijah Mitchell 6,400. Why they did that, I could not tell you. But he only had 8 carries last week, which was, I believe, a season low. Yeah, it's a season low in games that he started and finished. I guess it doesn't really matter. Just in general, it's the lowest amount of carries he's had in any game. And he's off the injury report this week, but he had 5 targets last week. That's something that I don't know if it's going to continue, but just the fact that he, even in games where he only had 8 carries, he's still getting 5 targets. Like, that just tells me that his floor is pretty secure. And in the 2 games prior, he had 0 targets total. Against Chicago and Indy, he had 0 targets total, but had 18 carries in both of those games. So yeah, sure, he might not go out and get 18 carries, but if he's going to get 8 to 10 carries and rack up 4, maybe 3 to 5 targets, I think his floor is really solid. And with his price being where it is, he's another guy that I like a lot. So Eli Mitchell, George Kittle are my 2 favorite plays on this slate right now. I also like Odell. I mean, I have to like Odell. I'm a major Odell stan. I wish he was cheaper, but also I think if he was super cheap, like if he was like under 6K or something, like super cheap, everyone would play him. So I am curious to see where his ownership falls. If he's going to be super popular, I probably ignore it because I like Kittle more. I like Eli Mitchell more, and I think you can even make a case for liking Brandon Ayuk more. I have him projected for a few more points, and he's almost $1,000 cheaper. So if Odell is someone that's super ignored, he's going to be a guy that I play. If he's super popular, he's going to be a guy that I fade. It's just that simple. That's how I'm playing the game theory with Odell. I mean, it's Odell. He's probably going to pick up ownership. Like I mentioned earlier, he gets attention no matter where he goes. So he's probably going to be fairly popular. But not to mention the Robert Woods stuff. With Robert Woods being hurt, he's probably going to be pretty popular because Robert Woods is out. So I'm pretty curious to see how that pans out there. All right. Oh, and then he wasn't even on the screen because he's so cheap. But Van Jefferson, like if Van Jefferson is less popular than Odell Beckham, I think that is super interesting. Let's just sort this by projection here. If Van Jefferson is less popular than Odell, I think that's probably the play of the night. But like, let's say people are worried about Odell not playing all the snaps or being limited, whatever. And Odell's 20% owned, while Van Jefferson's 45%. I don't know if those are going to be the numbers. I'm just trying to throw out like different ratios. Let's say Odell's 15% and Van Jefferson's 30%. I wouldn't mind playing Odell. But let's say Odell's 30% and Van Jefferson's 25%. I think Van Jefferson's definitely the better play. Like, there's definitely some concerns with Odell coming in and getting all the snaps already. And his prop is at like 32.5 on FanDuel. It was at 29.5, and I believe Debo just sent a screenshot saying he's at 27. Yeah, on Prize Picks, Odell's at 27.5. So it doesn't seem like many sites are expecting him to be extremely involved right now anyway. So it's just an ownership game for me with him. If he's popular, I'm going to fade it and play the less popular plays and the plays that just project better in that range. But if he's underowned, I have no problem saying, okay, well, hey, they just got a guy who was an all-pro receiver a few years ago. They're going to use him a ton, especially on like a night to say, hey, we just got this shiny new toy on Monday Night Football. Let's go show him off. So I'm strictly just going to play an ownership game with Odell. It's that simple. I mean, and he's a guy, sure, he is pretty expensive. 7,400 is not cheap, but he's also a guy that can pay off a price tag in 2 or 3 plays. So he's definitely going to be a guy that I have if he's low owned, but he's also going to be a guy who I think would probably be one of the better fades tonight if he's super popular. But all right, that's going to do it for the recap, and that's going to do it for the show. Again, like I mentioned, I think we're going to start trending more towards 30 to 45 minute shows. We're actually going to be working in some new segments eventually and doing stuff like that. It's going to be more of like a segmented show. So we're really looking forward to some of the changes that we're going to be making. If you guys have any suggestions or questions on kind of what you want to see from the show, feel free to DM me on Twitter or Discord or anywhere really. Unless you find me on like Facebook or something that's weird. Don't do that. I never use Facebook anyway, so I just won't respond. But appreciate you all for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, go give that a like and subscribe to the channel. Part of the reason why we want to start doing more segments and stuff is that we have these videos with those little segment bars on YouTube, and that way you guys can follow those along on YouTube more. And we want to really start pushing out some more content to those sites in terms of free content amongst plenty of different sports. So the more subscribers we get over there, the more we're able to do in terms of free content. So please make sure you're heading over there and checking that stuff out on YouTube and subscribing, liking all the comments. We do appreciate it all. But that's going to do it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Good luck on Monday Night Football. Good luck in NBA if you're playing that tonight. I'll be on the live stream at FTN Daily at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So go ahead and head over there and check that out as well. If you are looking to join FTN, you can use promo code KMUR to get yourself 20% off. That is amongst every sport, every site, every package, whatever you guys want to do. But we'll see you guys next time. See you tomorrow. Good luck, everybody. And we are out of here.